practices that we do in our tradition. You know, not only zazen, kinhin, and oryoki. We had 4 lovely oryoki meals produced by our Tenzo, our excellent Tenzo Zenitsu. You know, we had a number of services and chanting and daison and conversations about those things, because these were beginners. They had not much experience in the Zen Center and not much experience in sesshin. So they got to, you know, have multiple 30-minute sitting periods with 10-minute kinhin, one after the other, and you know, it was rigorous. It was challenging for them, but they all came out of it, you know, in the end, and they all expressed some very positive things about their experience. So I'm going to talk about you know, entering the stream and beginner's mind retreat a little bit. So, you know, first of all, you know, what is entering the stream? It's an interesting metaphor for coming into Dharma practice, and I'll start by reading a passage from Buddha's words by Bhikkhu Bodhi. And this is from the Sambuddha Nikaya, the Connected Discourses of the Buddha. These are the words of the Buddha, as recalled a couple hundred years after his death, because for a couple hundred years, all of his lectures were transmitted to the next generation through an oral tradition. And they weren't written down for a couple hundred years. So this was what they say that the Buddha said about stream entry. And the Blessed One asked Sariputta, this is one of his main disciples, and it's the same Shariputra that Avalokiteshvara addresses in the Heart Sutra, which we chant periodically in our services. The Blessed One asked, Sariputta, it is said, the stream. Now, what is the stream? And Sariputta answered, this noble eightfold path, Venerable Sir, is the stream. This is the Buddha's eightfold path. You know, this was one of the 4 noble truths that the Buddha realized after he arose from the Bodhi tree, after his long night of zazen. And the 4 noble truths are the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, which is clinging, the truth that suffering can be overcome, and the truth that the way to overcome suffering is through the Noble Eightfold Path. So Sariputta said, this Noble Eightfold Path, Venerable Sir, is the stream. That is right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Those are the eightfold components. And the Buddha said, good, Sariputta, it is as you say. And then he continued, Sariputta, it is said, a stream enterer. What is a stream enterer? And Sariputta said, one who possesses this noble eightfold path. Venerable Sir, is called a stream enterer. So that's a pretty specific definition of entering the stream. But as a matter of fact, we didn't talk about the Eightfold Path at all this weekend at the session. But the Buddha's teachings, they're so systematic. He lays things out, one thing after another, and he gives metaphors and he explains them quite well, and he relates them to so many of his other teachings. It's very systematic, and so in his view, the Noble Eightfold Path is the stream. It's this stream of right effort and right speech and right livelihood and just right behavior that carries one through the Dharma practice. And in fact, it's said, and I found this on the web, that one, in their view, when one enters the stream of practice with the Eightfold Path, one will gently flow to the river, from the stream to the river, and from the river to the ocean of enlightenment. So, this is like a stepwise progression to awakening and enlightenment that is part of the worldview, from those early years. But in the 2,500 years since Buddha taught these sutras, Buddhism has spread out of India into Tibet and eastward to China and Japan and now into the West. There's been many other profound teachings and many wise ancestors, not only in our lineage but throughout the history of in our lineage, which is in the Japanese Soto Zen tradition, which is a branch of Mahayana Buddhism, the stream and the path are not quite so clear-cut and quite so systematically laid out as they were by Shakyamuni Buddha, according to what they wrote down there. So, for example, the poetic, analytic, articulate, and very mystifying founder of Soto Zen Buddhism in Japan is named Eihei Dogen. We call him Dogen Zenji. And he has a different stream metaphor that is part of his writings. And in one of his writings called Genjo Koan, The Way of Everyday Life, in his metaphor, the stream's not specifically the Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path, but it's rather the stream of our Buddha Dharma commitment and experience, and life, for which he poetically says, the wind of Buddhism, this is the Buddha Dharma, blowing around us and through us and enlivening us. The wind of Buddhism actualizes the gold of the earth and turns our life's long river into sweet cream. So this is another stream image. Our life, our long life, enlivened by Buddha Dharma, transformed by Buddha Dharma, not just the early teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, but there's numerous other teachers in Buddhism. And we're also steps, and 4 of these and 8 of those, and you transform gradually so in your 4 stages of jhanas, and you become an arahat, and you've achieved, liberation and nirvana, not to be reborn again into this life. It's like, But Dogen, he asserts that our foundational practice, which is zazen, it's not meditation, but rather it's practice enlightenment. It's not practicing enlightenment, it's when we practice it, it is an expression or an activity of enlightenment. Because in his belief, and as a concept and an understanding emerged in the 1700 years between the time of Shakyamuni Buddha and Dogen Zenji, who was in the 1200s in Japan, this understanding of something called Buddha nature had arisen within Mahayana Buddhism in particular. And as it says in one of our sutras, or maybe dedications in our services, Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing here and now. Buddha nature. What is that Buddha nature? It suggests that we're all originally enlightened. I mean, from the very beginning. As little babies coming into the world, we're enlightened. We're immature little Buddhas, but we still retain our Buddha nature, even as we grow into the terrible twos and the rebellious teens and anxious adults. We still have Buddha nature. We still have, so when we sit down and do our practice and we settle deeply, concentration right here and right now, forgetting our thoughts and ourself, we touch into that. We touch into our original Buddha nature. And, and what is that Buddha nature? Well, I would say that it has some aspects of what Buddha taught, of truth and reality. And when he had his insights under the Bodhi tree and other times in his life, he had profound insights into the nature of existence of human life. And, he said that, marks of existence are impermanence, interdependence, and no self. So I think that those are attributes of Buddha nature which pervade the whole universe. Impermanence pervades the whole universe, doesn't it? Impermanence. Change, constant change. Nothing lasts forever. There's constant change. Interdependence, everything is dependent on something else. Cause and effect, causes and conditions. Continuously make everything come together and continuously make everything fall apart. Whether it's here or, on the moon or some other galaxy. It's constant change and dependent upon the conditions. The amount of, pressure, energy, hydrogen, everything. And no self, the idea of no self is the idea that, it's a contrast with this concept of a durable, lasting self that existed before we were embodied and will continue to exist after we're dead. An alternative is the personality, okay? We each have a personality. That's our self, our ego, it's compiled of all of our experiences and our memories and our beliefs and our points of view and our desires and our traumas and everything else, it's us, But, according to Buddha, this is an illusion. Okay? There's not really that self. That's like just covering over because based on, our years of experience. I mean, it's like a dirt bike racer riding around in the mud and just getting covered with mud, and then underneath him there is this like clean person, take off all the stuff, and there's, that's like our self is kind of like that, underneath there's this Buddha nature. Just like when we were little babies, we still have these attributes of impermanence. Everything's changing. Interdependent. We're connected to everything else, and everything is connected with us. We're dependent upon the whole world, and then there's ways in which everything, especially those things near to us, are dependent on us, and we don't have this ego, really. I mean, that's a fabrication. It's a defense mechanism. It's a survival mechanism that, apes developed in order to, successfully hunt and mate and reproduce and, anyway. So another stream image comes out of one of our service dedications. Okay? And we sometimes chant, or the chant leader sometimes chants, "The endlessly flowing stream of cause and effect has brought us to this place and time." Yeah, this endlessly flowing stream reminds me, I wanted to ask you, so we had this entering the stream retreat this week, and I'm just wondering, how many of you feel like you've entered the stream? 1, 2, 3, 4, raise my hand, 5, 6, 7, 8. And maybe it depends on the screen. We have at least one hand, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, a lot of stream enterers in the room and in the Zoom room. Good, yeah. So, but there's different understandings of what that is. For followers of the Buddha's early teaching, original teachings, maybe none of us are really stream enterers. But for those who have this idea, the endlessly flowing stream of cause and effect has brought us to this place here and now. And that endlessly flowing stream of cause and effect it's another way of saying these three marks of existence: impermanence, interdependence, and the self. And this endlessly flowing stream of impermanence, of constant change, it's not just a theoretical thing. We can see and hear and feel it when we settle in to concentrated meditation right now. Just sit still for a minute and just listen and watch. Existence isn't frozen. We can hear it change. We can see it change. There's a constant change around us. If we pay attention, it's like a stream. Flowing around us constantly. It's impermanence. And in a way, it's emptiness, because nothing lasts. impermanent self, or, well, someone asked me if I thought it was possible that, the soul can live on after our death, and I guess I can't completely deny that that's true, but in my experience, I don't know if every personality lives on after death, but so I feel like that's a stream that we can enter. Every time we sit in zazen, we can enter that stream of change, that stream of impermanence, that stream of constant emergence and fading away. So, as I was preparing for the sesshin, I had some conversations with Mushin because she designed it and she was going to lead it. And as you know, she is recuperating from pneumonia, so she asked me to do that. And so we had some conversations, and she used a phrase. She said, talk about entering the stream. She says, what is emerging from the source? No, that's a good question. That's a different question from how do I enter a stream? It's like, what is emerging? What is the stream that's emerging, and what is the source? Which brought me to our chant book, page 10, Identity of Relative and Absolute. It was written by the 8th century Chan master in China, and we chanted it both mornings at the Entering the Stream session. The Chan teacher Shirto Shi-chan, who also wrote the Song of the Grassroot Hermitage, and he writes in the Identity of Relative and Absolute, the subtle source is clear and bright. Branching streams flow through the darkness. So maybe this touches on Mushin's hint on what's emerging from the source. The subtle source is clear and bright. The tributary streams flow through the darkness. And it turns out Shanru Suzuki wrote a book, or he gave lectures, and his followers created a book after his death. And the book is called Branching Streams Flow Through the Darkness. And in it, Suzuki taught, in the darkness, the branching streams flow everywhere, like water. Even when you're not aware of water, there is water. Water is inside our physical body. And in plants, too. There's water all over. In the same way, the pure source is everywhere. Each being is itself pure source. Each being is itself pure source. And pure source is nothing but each being. There are not two things. There's no difference between pure source and stream. The stream is pure source, and pure source is the stream. The pure source is flowing all over, even though you don't know it. This don't know, this not aware of, don't know it, is what we call dark. It's what we call the darkness. And it's very important, he says. So this pure source, stream is everywhere. We are the source, we're the stream, the source is us. Sounds like Dogen Zenji. You know? Is there a source? Is there no source? Is there both a source and no source? The pure source is flowing all over even though you don't know it. This don't know is what we call dark. Branching streams flow through the darkness, even though we don't know it. The source is constantly flowing. And it's flowing from us and through us, and to us, and in us, out of us. And yet, that doesn't completely answer Nushin's question, does it? What is emerging from the source? What do you think? So, the name of our retreat was Entering the Stream, a Beginner's Zen Retreat. And this Beginner's Zen Retreat reminds me of another book that Suzuki Roshi wrote called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, right? And in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, he wrote, in the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's there are few. So this session wasn't just about entering the stream, it was also had some aspects of beginner's mind to it, very nicely. And in the course of, I would talk a little bit about these different aspects of our practice as a way of introducing these potentially new Zen practitioners to many of our ways of doing things, especially in sesshin. And then we had time for questions and discussion and so forth. And these beginners asked some questions, and there were many possibilities in their minds. So some questions like one person asked, I'm drawn to this practice of clarifying for myself and finding some peace and liberation for myself. But I'm also deeply involved with social justice and economic justice, eco-justice issues, activism in the world, and how do I reconcile, those dual needs? I don't want to give up what I feel is important work in the justice issues, and yet I'm drawn to this question of taking care of my own needs. So, and then another person, and so that's I gave an answer. What would you have said? What would you have said? Someone else, I spoke about the precepts at one time as being, a foundational piece of what we do, and that we're in sort of the precept season around here. We're doing precept study, and there's going to be some precept ceremony, including next Sunday, the 5 precepts next Sunday, and next month, the 16 precepts, the Jukai ceremony. And someone, I named them off, and then talked about other things, and then when it was question time, one person said, what's that thing about sexuality? What do you mean, abstain from sexual, abusing sexual energy? I think the 5 precepts students right now have already passed through that one. I think that, you say? What would you say? Somebody else said, you know, I have a family, and is it you know, how do I like start a practice and take time to do practice, and at the same time, I have these family responsibilities. You know, I've got kids, and I've got a spouse and things. And so how do I balance that out? What would you say? Another one. Hey, we've been doing these chanting, and we've chanted these, identity relative and absolute and other things. He's like, do you guys ever? I mean, I can see getting and really connecting with these sutras and things as a practitioner, experientially from the inside, but. Do you guys ever just do an intellectual discussion of the sutras and the chants? Just sort of dive into them as like kind of the analytical, academic exercise. Huh? What would you say?
I would say become a Tibetan rather than say.
Oh, become a Tibetan.
If you want analysis.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah. So, are these beginner's mind questions, or are these, long-standing questions? There were rich questions, and many of them could deserve, a whole retreat for itself, talking about, hey, what about social justice? What about practicing when you have a family? What about, and then another person asked, well, how much practice is a good idea? Can I have a home practice, and should I come to the Zen Center, or how often should I do that? What do you think? And I'm sure you all have your own answers, and but I gave an answer to them. It's like, having a home practice is a great thing. So you should practice at home as often as you can, right? A few times a week is, 7 days a week if you can, and some people practice twice a day, morning and evening. But you do what you can, especially if you have a family. It's different. And coming to Sangha Jewel, you try to do that at least once a week, but we've got offerings 7 days a week, sometimes 3 things in a day. Come in the morning, come in the evening, come in the middle of the day, but come, because practicing all by yourself, it's, I don't know, it's like having just one point of view, and you kind of get trapped in that. And if you're practicing with other practitioners who are supportive and caring and encouraging, especially when you get a chance to have a discussion like on Tuesday night, when people are sharing their own insights and questions, it's like everybody learns. Everybody sees something new and different. Same thing on Thursday. We get the Daisan, the group Sanzen, people ask questions. Everybody benefits from that. It really broadens the experience. Not only learning the Dharma, but having caring friends in a Sangha that support what you're doing and care about your well-being and stuff. It's a sweet thing. And also, if you come, you get to have Sanzen.
And cookies. Cookies.
I heard that. I heard that. Cookies. I won't forget the cookies. But Sanzen is it's an individual one-on-one relationship, a Dharma relationship with a teacher, and having a conversation, a short one, 5 or 10 minutes, that's totally focused on the students' questions or challenges or insights or breakthroughs or blocks or whatever. It's totally focused on the student. And, you know, that's a treasure in our tradition. I heard that that's available in the Tibetan tradition. Is that true? Okay.
Yeah.
There's the one-on-one. I mean, there's like
Mhm.
Sanzen. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's true in the Theravadan. I don't know that it's true. I mean, there may be possibility of having that, but in our tradition, that's like a bedrock part of it. You're not, in my opinion, not a fully engaged Zen practitioner unless you have regular Sanzen with a teacher to help, you know, help you understand, broaden your point of view, ask different questions, you know, look outside the box, you know, don't get stuck in a rut, keep going. And I also said that regular sesshin practice is also advisable. If you think you really want to enter this stream, part of the stream is, you know, the easy going, go with the flow, be, you know, do walking meditation out in the garden when the birds are chirping, you know. And part of it is cooking in a sesshin, you know. You get into the containers with sesshin, it lasts for days, it's a low simmer, you can't escape, you gotta be there, go through the pain, and go to, you know, deeper settling of meditative experience than you do by doing it for half an hour at a time every day or coming and doing it for an hour on an evening. So sesshin is multiple times a year is also a prescription for entering the stream. So anyway, those were some questions, those were some answers. What would you say? But I'll conclude by saying, you know, may you all continue to practice wholeheartedly as often as you can, and may your practice benefit yourself and everyone you encounter and countless others that you don't know